All right, this is chapter 4, lesson 2, using linear equations in slope-intercept form. So we wrote linear equations in slope-intercept form in our previous lesson, and now we're going to actually use them in slope-intercept form. So, starting with example 1, write an equation given the slope and a point. So this time, they're not going to give us the y-intercept. In our last lesson, they gave us the slope and the y-intercept. So now we're going to write an equation of the line that passes through this point right here and has a slope of -4. Hopefully my ink will work. There we go. So the first thing obviously is identify the slope. They've already told us the slope is -4. So our m is -4. And now it says find the y-intercept. Well, they don't give us the y-intercept, but look at what we do know. Okay, we know the slope, which we just said is -4. And we know an x and y coordinate. We know -1, as I write -3, sorry. We know an x and y coordinate of -1 and +3. Okay, so here's my x coordinate, and here's my y coordinate. Okay, what don't we know? Well, we don't know the y-intercept. Okay, so since we don't know a y, so since we know a y, an x, and the m, okay, we know a y value and an x value and the m of the line, we're going to substitute the slope and the x and y coordinates of the given point into the slope-intercept form, and then we're going to solve for b. Now this sounds confusing, but just bear with me, okay? Here's our slope-intercept form. We know ay that is on this line. We know the slope of this line, and we know an x that's on this line. What we don't know is the b. So if we substitute our three values in that we do know, we can find the b that we don't know. So let me show you what I mean. So here's our slope-intercept form. Okay, so we're going to substitute the -4 in for m right here, just like I told you. We're going to use -1 for x and 3 for y because these are points, or this is a point that lies on the line that we're trying to write the equation for. So now let's solve for b. So right here, 3 equals, okay, -4 times -1 is +4 plus b. Okay, so we subtract 4 from both sides, and we end up with b equal to -1 because 3 minus 4 is -1. So here's the math involved going from this step to this step. So please make sure you write all of this down. All right, so now we know our y-intercept is b. Our y-intercept is b. Now we know our y-intercept is -1. Our b is -1. So now we know our slope and we know the y-intercept. Now we know both. We know the m is -4 and we know the b is -1. So now we can just plug that into our slope-intercept form. This time we will not use the y and x coordinates because we don't need them. We need an equation of the entire line, not just those coordinates. So now we'll do like we just did yesterday when they gave us this information, and we substitute our slope and our y-intercept in. So I took my -4, put it in for my m, my -1, put it in for my b. There's my equation. Okay? All right. Let's look at example 2. Write an equation of the line that passes through -2, 5 and 2, -1. Well, what can we find with 2 points? Okay, they want an equation of the line. We need slope and we need y-intercept. We don't have either of those. But what can we find with 2 points? We can obviously find the slope. So let's use our slope formula. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1. And we do -1 minus 5. And on the bottom we do 2 minus a -2. Obviously these add together, so we get -6 over +4, or -3/2. So now we know our slope is -3 over 2. Correct? Let me make that a little more clear. We know our slope is -3 over 2. All right, now let's use our slope and one of the points. So now let's do exactly what we did in example 1, because now we have a slope and we have 2 points to choose from. So we just pick. We can pick any point we want for our x and y. So let's use this first point right here. Let's use negative 2, 5. So now we're going to use our slope-intercept form again, and this time we're going to solve for b again, but we're going to use negative 2, 5 and our slope of negative 3 halves. Okay? So let's substitute those in. I hope you're writing this down. Here's our y coordinate, here's our slope, and here's our x coordinate, leaving us with just the b to find. Okay, so now we're going to solve for b, solve for that y-intercept. Negative 3 halves times negative 2 is positive 3, so we end up with y equals 3 plus b. Subtract 3 from both sides, and we get b equals 2. Okay, so just that's how the math that got us from here to here. Okay, so now we know our b and we know our slope, so now we can write our equation. Okay, we're going to substitute negative 3 halves in for x and positive 2 for b. So now we've done a couple things. We found b when they give us the slope and 1 point. We've also been able to find the slope and the b when they just give us 2 points. All right, now, same idea as what we did yesterday, writing functions given 2 points. So this is just like we did yesterday. Here's your x, here's your y for 1 point, here's your x, and here's your y for a second point. So we're going to rewrite these. 4, 9 becomes our coordinate point 4, 9. And f of negative 4 equals negative 7 becomes negative 4, negative 7. So now we have 2 coordinate points. So it's exactly like example 2. We take our 2 coordinate points, and the first thing we do is find our slope. So you would do your y sub 2 minus y sub 1, and your x sub 2 minus x sub 1, and you get negative 16 over negative 8, or in other words, a positive 2, because negative 16 divided by negative 8 is positive 2. So my slope is 2. And I do the same thing again by finding the y-intercept. I'm going to use 4, 9 as points. So I'm going to plug those points in, and my y-coordinate is 9. So I put the 9 in. My m is 2, and my x-coordinate is 4. So I put the 4 in for x, and I solve. 9 equals 2 times 4 is 8 plus b. Subtract 8 from both sides. That's an 8, sorry. Subtract 8. And I get b equals 1. Okay, so my b equals 1. So there's my y-intercept. Now I can write my equation because I have my slope of 2 and my y-intercept of 1. So which one would it be? Which one has a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of 1? And that would be B. The correct answer is this one right here. Right there. Slope of 2, y-intercept of 1. All right, what if you're given a graph with 2 points? If you're given a graph, find the slope between the 2 points. Either use the slope formula, or just count, whatever you prefer. Count up and then count over, up or down and then over. Then use one of the points to substitute it all into y equals mx plus b to solve for b. So just like we did with example 2, pick one of the points and use the y-coordinate here and the x-coordinate here and the slope you just discovered and solve for b. Then obviously substitute the slope and the y-intercept back into your just slope-intercept form for your m and for your b. Okay. What if you're given a table of values? All right, if you're given if you're given a graph. If you're given a table of values, let's go back there. I'm sorry. If you're given a table of values, it says find the slope between 2 points, but find the rate of change or the slope. Okay, find the change in y in your table and put that over your change in x in your table, and we have an example coming up, so don't fret. Okay, and then use one of the points to substitute it all into the y equals mx plus b. Again, y coordinate here, slope you just found here, and the x coordinate there, and then solve for b. And then substitute it back in for your m and your b. Okay, let's practice. So we have an example. So what I meant by that is what they wanted you to do was, here's your x values, here's your y values. These are coordinate points. Okay, but what I'm telling you to do is this. So 6 to 4 is going down by 2, and then 4 to 3 is going down by 1, 3 to 2 is going down by 1. So my change in y doesn't look like it might be consistent, but let's just see how it goes on the other side. All right, so from negative 4 to positive 4, that's an increase of 8. And then here we have an increase of 4, and then an increase of 4. So if we put our y's over our x's, we have a couple of slopes. We have negative 2 over 8, which reduces to negative 1/4. Well, that's what these other ones are, a negative 1 over 4, change in y over change in x. So there's my rate of change right there. So there is my slope. So now I can choose one of these points. I can choose 4, 4. So my rate of change is negative 1/4 right there. Okay, and now I can, this is my slope. So now I can use the slope in one point to substitute in and solve for b. So let's use a 4 and 4. So let's put in a 4 in for my y, a negative 1/4 in for my slope, a 4 in for x, and a plus b, and let's solve for b. Okay, so 4, let's see, this would be negative 1 plus b, so add 1 to both sides, and I get b equals 5. So my y-intercept would be 5, and let's see how that goes. So use m and b to write the equation. So my equation would be y equals negative 1/4 x plus 5. So there's my practice. You can stop the video and do the guided practice on the back.